Okay, we got about 10 minutes or so here. I'll go back to some of the culture stuff we were talking about. We talked about, our drug culture. I wrote down, culture of shortcuts. That's what I feel like in the time that we live in. You can't go through a trial. We just got to shortcut it. Take a pill, get rid of it. No, same thing. You're going through marriage and dating. The question I have here is this. Is the culture of our day different than in times past on the issue of marriage and dating? And instantly I think of, obviously, people aren't even getting married anymore. They're just shacking up, saying forget it or whatever in case they need to get out of it faster or whatever. And it's just like they're shortcutting what the Lord has for them. Is that true? Or do you say, you were born way before I, has the culture just always been like that, or is there just a total different attitude towards marriage? And
oh no, there's a completely different attitude towards marriage from the time I was a kid to the time that we're living in. Except for in my home, my mom's been married 10 times, and so that started when I was a little kid, and so my experience with my family was something that was completely different than most of the kids that I knew growing up. The whole situation where you have divorced parents and all the junk that goes along with it was something that wasn't seen very often when I was a kid in the 70s. And in fact, that's when it really started up, because people had gotten into the whole, sexual revolution thing and all of the junk that goes with that. My family was just kind of on the cutting edge of that kind of nonsense. I can't remember another kid that I knew in high school that didn't have a mom and a dad. I can't remember. I can't remember any of my friends that didn't have their real parents. I had one friend whose mother had died probably 6, 7, 8 years at the time that I knew him. Before that point, and his dad hadn't gotten remarried. Another good friend, same thing. Their mother had died when they were about 12 years old, and his dad hadn't got remarried. And so that's the gamut of it. I'm the only kid that came from a divorced home, basically. And there might, obviously I didn't know every kid in my school, but in my close circle of friends, that's what it was like. And obviously that's not the case today.
Obviously.
Yeah. Families that are staying together are not the norm. And so, I go out for a anniversary dinner and a lot of times we're dressed up and the waitress says, are you guys celebrating something? And yeah, our anniversary. Oh, how long you been married? And they're expecting, 5, 10, maybe 15 years, and they get 35 and they're like, what? All excited about the whole thing. That's amazing. It's not amazing. That's normal. That was normal for most of the people in our culture before God got abandoned wholesale basically. And so, yeah, everything's changed. I forgot the rest of the question.
Well, it's just talking about the culture issue of marriage and dating and how people shortcut it and what the Lord has for them.
Yeah. One of the things that you don't see in the Bible is dating. And so I kind of, when I was talking about the Jewish wedding feast, I kind of made the point that most times these guys, when they got married, they were marrying somebody that they'd known all their life. They grew up in villages, and so they weren't necessarily going to a village 80 years or 80 miles down the road or something. They were marrying within their village.
Because the story you told about the betrothal process, it's not like that's a dating period in their culture. They're married waiting for the union, right?
Right.
So so on your point, then what did they have a?
Well, they would grow up together. They would know each other.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and so they're not dating, going out and making out and that kind of stuff, because that was frowned upon. But they would have known each other, and so there would be like a courtship type of thing, and like you said, that's a betrothal, and so that's what was happening with Joseph and Mary when Mary was found to be pregnant, and the only way out of that was a divorce because the contract had been made.
Right.
They're married.
Right.
They just haven't consummated the marriage. And so when you were looking at those kinds of situations, a lot of times the parents were involved with the choosing of the mates, which I think is a really good thing, actually. If you got parents who love you, and most people do, even if you come from a messed up home, most people have parents that love them, and most people's parents know them in a way that they may not know themselves. And I'm saying most, on purpose, because I know that there are exceptions to this whole thing. But when somebody comes in and they want to get married, one of the things that I ask them is, what do your parents think? What do your parents think of you, each of you? And there are times when the parents don't have a good opinion of one or the other, and I find out why. And sometimes it's because the parents don't follow the Lord. They don't like the whole Jesus thing. And,
right.
and so you have to expect that. They just don't know the Lord.
Yeah.
But there are times when there are valid issues. And you got a dad who wants the guy to have a job, and and that kind of thing. And there is nothing wrong with that. I'm the father of a daughter, and anybody who wants to marry my kid, they better have a job. And if they don't, then I'll be making a ruckus about that whole thing. In any case, you had a situation where the parents were way more involved, and there was way more respect for the parents' views on those things. And the older that I get, the more wisdom I see in that, because I've seen a number of situations where two people got together and the parents were predicting disaster, and that's exactly what took place because of immaturity or whatever. And so it's one of those things that you pay attention to. So in any case, when you look at the Bible, these people grew up together. They knew each other. The parents were involved. It was kind of a family thing. And I like that. I like that a lot. It's in a lot of ways it's not really possible in our culture because we grow up in places where you can be living next door to a person for decades and never really know them, and so it's kind of a different thing. That's why having a relationship with the Lord and growing up in church and that kind of thing is a really good thing. I found my wife at a Bible study, and so really short-circuited a bunch of junk in our marriage, and so yeah. Anyway, different culture, but same principles.